I just think we can be such a healthier society.
I think Willie Nelson should be president.
Open up, Colorado. It's 420. Time to grind and burn.
This is not your son's stoner show.
Welcome to the Grind and Burn, a podcast from the Cannabis Community Project, broadcasting live from the Dank Studios at 3835 Elm Street in Denver, Colorado. We are the first media show to bring businesses to cannabis. What an election. But thank God it's over. Here we go, Cannapreneurs. This is my official political show. This is all I'm ever going to say on the election, politics. You're not going to see anything else from me on Facebook. I'm not going to be crying or protesting in the streets. But let me just get my words out for this week. Let me have you take a short week just to reflect on a couple thoughts. And then we'll come back with a guest next week. But I don't want to overwhelm you this week with a bunch of guests because I know everybody's thinking about the election. That's all that's on the mind. That's all that's on social media. That's all that's in the news. Election. Is it even over? We don't know. How much longer can this be drug out? You know, I'm amused and frustrated, irritated, and disappointed all at the same time. Not just in the results of the election, because for most of you that know me, I'm a third-party voter. I didn't vote for either one of these candidates, and I'm proud of it. I don't fall into this myth or belief that voting third-party somehow gives the election to one or the other. That's a myth. I don't contribute to the problem in the world. I do my part to make change. So beside that, I'm glad the election's over, but I think it's almost worse now, the social media reaction. How many times can I watch a post of hypocritical people accusing hypocritical people of being hypocritical as they're discovering hypocrisy within their own hypocrisy as they relay it through a form of hypocrisy, right? It gets old. It gets tiring. This black, blue, Crips, Bloods, which side are you on? Broncos, Raiders, who are you backing? Nonsense. Enough, right? The only winner I can see that came out of this election was the 7-ish states that legalized some form of cannabis. Even been a little surprised at down in the South. California, the most obvious one, is also probably the most controversial. Prop 64. Apparently people are saying if you voted for that legalization, you're really voting against the community, the industry, and XYZ of all this other stuff. Is that true? It may or may not be. We're putting together an official analysis by somebody who is properly trained to give her opinion on this. Lillian Grace. We're going to make that as one of the first segments of the new show, The Cannabis Factor, coming out in just a couple weeks. The Cannabis Factor focusing on regulation and policy and law. Lillian Grace being our own in-house photographic memory consultant who has read literally every piece of legislation in the country on medical marijuana and cannabis. And she focuses on the federal risk of it all because that's still the main risk of what's going on. So every time we talk to her, we find out more information, and we're going to get some insights about this Prop 64, what it really means, the thumbs up, the thumbs down. She had some interesting insights. I talked to her a little bit about it yesterday, and some of you may disagree, but I think you should hear her out. So we'll get that official analysis up in a couple weeks. Stay tuned for that. And more importantly, here in Denver, Prop 300 passed. Prop 300 was allowing for social cannabis clubs, smoking clubs to be introduced into the city. And yes, it passed by a thin margin. I think something like 12,000 votes in the yay versus the nay on that one. So a very small margin, and that's why emphasis on voting. So I'm not going to go into a rant on those who are against voting. I just want to make one point very relevant here. The president is not the only thing you go to the polls and and vote for. And if you live here in Colorado and probably many other states, they send the ballot to your home. You do it at home. It took me about 25, 30 minutes. You send it back. It was 65 cents or something. I didn't even pay for a stamp. I just dropped it off at the box around the corner. That was the local voting booth box. It was that easy. But it's not just about presidential voting. There's stuff like Prop 64 and Prop 300 that are affecting our community that just shows us why it's important. We have to actually participate and be engaged and vote. And as a result, the community got together and we said yes, and now we're going to have social smoking club. Now we're already set up at Dank, right? Because I've been telling you for months we have this new location, the Twisted Event Center. It's in Women Grow events are there, and we had the Crypto Cannabis conference there, and it holds a few hundred people and smoking outdoors. But now we can have an official smoking club built around the community, implemented, and it's not going to be like a bar. People have the wrong idea what's going to happen here. Last week's episode, I ranted just a little bit, or maybe not last week, maybe it was the week before when I was talking to Jay, the owner of Dank, about the benefits of allowing smoking clubs to happen because it benefits those who are fearsome of public consumption and having it be in your face and the what about the kids preachers, right? By giving people a place to consume publicly and privately, you're getting them out of the street, out of your face. So this is a big win for us. And this is going to create so much more business. The money is just piling up here, literally in Colorado. Because on our local ballot election, we had many amendments, propositions, and initiatives and everything else coming through for a lot of money, requesting a lot of money of increased taxes and school payments and everything else. But you know what? We have the money now. Now we can pay for it, all because of cannabis. So thank you to you consumers, you advocates, you out there who made this happen. We are that much more secure in what we're doing here. And you 7 other states that came on board this last week, welcome to the club. We're here in Colorado to help you, show you the way that is the most professional and proper and compliant and regulatory, I'm going to say the best system probably out there from a medical standpoint, or maybe a recreational standpoint. I forget what Lillian Grace told me out of all the states that she's studied. She said Colorado had the best. I forget if she said it was rec or med, but the point is we got it going on here, and we're ready to help you convert your state into a cannabis-friendly state. I have a very strong opinion of caution because I'm also a risk-reward type person. I naturally tend to see risk and barriers and problems with situations that arise. I'm a very good risk assessor, and as a result of that, I foresee some potential challenges happening with the legalization that we have to be careful about. Because as a practitioner of Aikido, I understand the using one's momentum against themselves, and sometimes state legislators and those who are in opposition of what we're trying to do here, they have the ability to do that from a legislative standpoint. They can't stop the momentum that's happening of the legalization, but somehow they seem to use that momentum against us, and they come back with regulatory issues that creates more of a barrier than just a flat-out denial of rights through a law prohibiting the use of, right? They couldn't stop Amendment 64, but your local community can keep a dispensary out of your town. Now, this is very analogous to the abortion issue, which a lot of people like to bring up, how if X president versus Y president is elected, then abortion will disappear because they'll elect a Supreme Court judge and then they'll tap the hammer that says it's now illegal, blah, 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 blah. So we've seen this hysteria before, right? And for those of you who are older than 18, 20, 25, right? Were you old enough during the second Bush election when we encountered this hysteria of the extreme religious right that we're going to destroy our country, have kids praying in school every morning and fearing God by lunchtime, and by the time they got home at night, there would be a gun on their bed from the NRA and a Bible in their hand. And we've seen the hysteria, right? It happens every election. Every Republican is deemed as the evil of evil of evil who is going to make abortion and cannabis and all these other issues just magically overnight reverse or change. Well, it didn't actually happen with Bush, and it hasn't happened on a federal level since the enactment of the famed Roe v. Wade, right? But you know what has happened? State legislators have used their ability of creating regulation and policy to create more of a barrier, legal barriers, not necessarily physical barriers, but legal barriers to prevent the operation of such clinics. Now, I'm not going to go into the details of how, but this is actually happening. There's documentaries on Netflix that talk about this. But it's not a legislator saying we're going to reverse this law or make it illegal. It's them saying, fine, you made it legal. Now let's see if you can get through my regulation and compliance. They tried to do this with cannabis at the beginning by the hundreds of thousands of dollars required to start a dispensary and a grow and all of the regulation of security and doors and how everything had to be to a very specific model that cost a lot of money that unfortunately only allowed those with money to participate. And when I say money, I'm not saying, I got a plan in my home and I want to see if I can get in business. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. So imagine your stoner friends saying they want to be in the industry. Who's the reality that's going to participate, right? So this is how they get you with policy, regulation, and compliance where they don't actually have to overturn your law. So Prop 64, Prop 300 here in Denver, yeah, sure, it passed. Now it's legal to have a social smoking club. What does that mean on a policy level? How is that regulation going to be implemented where you're in compliance with the law based on the regulation they're giving you? Can you actually open a club? California, can you actually operate a recreational dispensary? Not because the law says you can't, but because your local community legislator, the one sitting on a city council, the one in your local state Congress, the one that's in the mayor's office, they're going to create compliance regulation that's going to either allow you to operate or not. And it has nothing to do with the law you voted on. So that's my 2 cents on that with the caution of what to look out for in the future. I was talking about this when I started my show almost 3 years ago. I was actually listening to a show number 8. I was listening to show number 8 way back then, right? Just my first couple months into doing this show back in 2014. It was probably February of 2014. And I was monologue ranting on this issue potentially happening. And I found some news issues, some news stories when I was doing news segments. And I just wanted to give you a quick minute of how I was talking about it 3 years ago and how it's almost going to come to fruition now, because this is so important. We all realize what's happening so we can stop it and keep this momentum moving forward. All right, so there you go. I was thinking about it then, I'm thinking about it now, and hopefully you are also thinking about this and how we move forward. So how do we break free? Well, I'll tell you one way how we won't break free is by going back to the same insanity, right? So for those of you right now who are out there saying we have to reform the Democratic Party and impeach Trump from office and we have to run in the streets and break windows and riot because he's not my president. I'm sorry to say, you're contributing to the problem, because that's not how we win. How we win is by creating warriors that fight on a local level, that fight to make laws like Prop 300, Prop 64 happen in your local community. Because it's the community that affects your life. We all think the president is affecting our life, right? Like what he does in the morning and what he does when he goes to bed at night is going to determine how we wake up in the morning. I got news for you. It's not the president. Most likely it's going to be the one sitting at the city council, the one sitting in the state legislature, the governor, the mayor, and your local corporations interacting with those government officials. That's what affects the majority of your life for most of what you do on a daily basis. So getting involved in your community is the only way to really empower yourself, empower your community, take back what you're trying to win, not by violence and destructive rioting, but by taking action as an advocate, hopefully as a cannabis advocate. And that's what we're all about here. So be part of this community, the Cannabis Community Project, and let this be the platform for you to find your advocacy, to find yourself as a warrior, to bring yourself to the strength and courage to stand up and fight, but on a smart way, not a destructive way. Be a warrior. A warrior just like we met last week. Do you remember him? Preston? Preston from War Now, I messed up his name. I accidentally called him Prescott and then had to quickly change that, who talked to us about his life through the military, being a federal agent, a police officer, to a cannabis advocate, and how he's fighting the system. And little by little, whichever route you choose, whether you're going to be an advocate, a nonprofit agency, or a for-profit cannabis business, it doesn't matter. It only matters that you're engaged with your community and you're making society better. There you go, Cannapreneurs. That's all I got to say this week on the matter. Thank you very much for joining me for a very short show. But as always, grind and burn.
A flashback to 2014.
Weedist posting halfway through the 2014 session. Georgia's medical marijuana bill has a problem. It doesn't create a legal source of cannabis. Oh, you got to read this article because this is very much the roots of what is going to happen over the next couple years. It's going to be history repeating itself. You all know the backstory, back in the early 1900s and William Hearst and the whole paper mill and blah, blah, blah. But what we're repeating here is the basic idea that cannabis, or at the time as it was termed marijuana, a rather racist term that was taken from the Mexican slang term of marijuana, was used to specifically separate cannabis to this illegal drug versus the hemp and medicinal aspects. So over 100 years ago, we knew what was going on with this plant. We knew how it could help us not only from an economical and financial way, but also from a medical standpoint. And we allowed industry to block that. And then we allowed industry to block it through legal laws, right? You remember the stamp tax, the marijuana stamp tax? Sure, it was legal. All you had to do was get a stamp, right? Just pay a little bit of money, get a tax. I don't know if you lick the stamp and put it on an envelope or what you do with it. The problem was they never gave out any stamps. So what we're seeing here in Georgia and what we're seeing little by little in other states is this idea that the government, whether it be a state or a federal government, cannot actually stop this movement. They can't stop what's going on. They can't prevent marijuana from being used, and now they can't even prevent it from being illegal anymore. So the only thing they have left to control is the actual regulation. So what they'll do is they'll open arms accept it. All right, this is a very common tactic. Open arms accept it, publicly saying, of course, we accept it. It's legal. Here it is. Here's the process of what you can do. And then make the administrative bureaucracy and the process to actually obtain your legal rights so impossible through regulation that it actually cannot be implemented. And then when individuals try to exercise their rights, they're in violation of some type of regulation or policy. Not in violation of the actual law, because you see, they couldn't stop that. The people stood up, they moved, they got the laws changed. But the one thing they don't have control over is the implementation of the regulation. How those local governments or the federal government, the DEA and all these de facto government facilities are actually allowing us to operate within the law. So what we need to do is not give up, not stop, not back down, not be beaten out by this psychological warfare that's an uphill battle. It's too much. They're too big. They're going to win. There's no point. I'm learning that a little bit this week on my own. We're changing studios, and the reason we had to change studios is because we are in a dispute with our previous studio. That's right. I'm playing a TV lawyer this week, filling out motions and filing documents with the court, litigating with lawyers, going to court and making a case, cross-examining witnesses. And all along the way, there's people saying, why don't you just give up? Why don't you just accept it? Why don't you just do what they're telling you to do because they're too big to fight against? And what's my response? No. Hell no. I will not give up. I will not stop fighting. Because the Cannabis Community Project is not about what I do. It's about a mentality of who I am. And when people come up against me and they do something that is clearly wrong, I have an obligation to fight even if I lose. And that's what we have to do in this industry. Even if we lose these battles, we have to fight. And we have to keep moving forward. Because Georgia is just an example of what can happen anywhere. It's what can happen on a federal level. The DEA can say, sure, it's legal, but you violated this, and this regulation. So we're still going to kick in your door, take away your children, strip you of all your assets and belongings, throw you in a cage with bars, and still not have anybody to actually stand in front of you as a victim of your actions. But simply, you are your own victim of the regulation. Do not give up. Do not give up. Do not give up. Do not falter in your fight. Because whether you're disputing an employer, whether you're disputing a landlord, whether you're disputing disputing a frivolous lawsuit, whether you're disputing a cop who wrongfully pulled you over, it doesn't matter. If you didn't do anything wrong, you have an obligation to fight, as we all do. That's all the news you need to know this week.
Set this place on fire.
My name is Preston Crawford. I am founder and owner of WAR, which is Warriors in Recovery. I am a 501c3, a nonprofit. My other business partners are So Fast LLC, which is here in Colorado, and Hip to Be Hemp. Jeff Patch Adams would be with So Fast. Armando Ramos would be with Hip to Be Hemp. We've been working on some things together, the three organizations that we're working with. And all through these years that we've been working together, we've finally collaborated, and we ended up here with doing advocacy for not only just veterans, but for cannabis and hemp, the whole industry, water, where it's going and what it's all about. So we came to a conglomerate, us three, that this is a great place to start here in Colorado. Well, my style is the military lines, which is the special forces. Well, I actually have VOA, which I created. If you know anything about Bruce Lee, JKD. I trademark VOA, which is violence of action, which in the military, that's all we talk about is violence of action. So what I did with my martial arts is I drew from the military with the spear system, which is kind of like you don't teach civilians, even law enforcement. Yeah. It's linear incapacitation, something like that, neuro. But what it was is Ron Don DeVito was a Marine, and he developed this system, which is a quick kill system. It's nothing more to it, but it's a self-defense quick kill. It's 7 moves, okay? Because it's anybody that's been in martial arts or anything, they can tell you anything about muscle memory, whether it be shooting martial arts or everything. You have to do a movement over 5,000 times for it to become muscle memory. You have a job. When you have to do direct action, you have to do it.
Right.
But you have a humanitarian side of you, and it's a balance. Special forces, Green Beret is a unique individual. You have a language. You're taught to go into this culture and not pretty much decimate their culture. Part of the whole thing. And here I was, and 9/11 happened. And I had already applied for all these jobs. U.S. Marshal, Federal Air Marshal, a DOE courier, which is, works for the Department of Energy. All these federal jobs, which I was going to make a lot more money than I was making in the military. And, get some more benefits. And, I just needed some R&R. So back 2005, I was ordering the vapors. It looked like a screwdriver. I was doing construction, all this other stuff. I got this big thing with a little hose on it. I'm running around in South Carolina vaping all the time in 2005, But you can look for me under LinkedIn, or if you want to contact me personally, Preston Crawford at Outlook.com. Real easy.
Excellent. So I look forward to seeing the next few months as you develop this, and you can come back on and talk more about it as things get developed, and have an open door. Come back on and let us know how you're helping people and changing the world.
All right.
Thank you very much. Last year, there was over 200,000 people that came to Colorado. How many of them came to start a business? The competition is heating up. So if you have a business, an idea, or just some thoughts about cannabis that need to be shared with the community, do it on this show. Contact me at brainstorm@cannabiscommunityproject.com.